Pope's sermon pushed the boundaries of Christian teaching. In his holy war, a crusader now had the blessing of God to ignore the sixth commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," as long as he was an infidel.
This is violence which God actually wants, and he wants it so much that he's actually going to give a spiritual reward to people who participate in it. It's literally like opening Pandora's box. I'm not sure he's actually conscious of how dangerous an idea he's tampering with at Clermont. But what it leads to is a very powerful upsurge of a sense of hatred of the outsider, if you like, in Western Europe, and a turning against anyone who seems to be other than what is an accepted norm, a Western Christian.
Before the crusade had even left Europe, Christian fanatics swept up by the Pope's words hankered to spill blood. To these fundamentalists, any non-Christian was an infidel, and the infidels were all around.
But the pilgrims rose up in a spirit of cruelty against the Jews. They inflicted a most cruel slaughter on them, claiming that the killings would be of service against the enemies of Christianity. They attacked them, decapitated many. They destroyed their homes and synagogues, and even divided all the looted money amongst themselves.
Across Europe, thousands of Jews were massacred in the name of God. Murder and slaughter of the innocent had become the hallmarks of the First Crusade. In the autumn of 1096, almost a year after the Pope's sermon, armies from France, Germany, and Italy set out on the epic 3,000-mile march to aid their Christian brothers and liberate the Holy Land from Muslim rule. Constantinople is today known as Istanbul, the bustling showpiece of modern Turkey, and a largely Muslim city. But 900 years ago, perched on the most easterly tip of Europe, it was the last Christian city before the Crusade ventured across the Bosphorus into enemy territory. Then, the jewel of the city was the great Orthodox Christian cathedral of St. Sophia. Covered in mosaics of burnished gold, it was a vivid testament to the legendary wealth of Constantinople.
When the Crusaders arrived out here, these doors would have been shining and dazzling, and of course closed before them.
The gates had been sealed on direct orders of the Emperor Alexius. He was furious. A Catholic army of 60,000 was not what he had in mind when he asked Pope Urban to send an elite team of mercenaries.
What he required was a group of about 300 knights, well-trained, well-armed, that he could direct where he felt the threat was greatest. What he got was something completely different, something that he did not remotely in his wildest dreams expect to receive. Tens of thousands of fanatical, armed men who descended upon him like a series of pests, locusts coming down, in fact, is how one chronicler describes it. And they came down and they approached his great city, wave after wave after wave.
The swarm of soldiers sent by his rival, the Pope, and now camping outside the gates, was large enough to mount an attack on the city. He couldn't afford to offend them. But Alexius could see a way to manipulate events to his own advantage.
The Emperor Alexius was a wicked and crafty man. He played the part of a scorpion, which when met face to face is harmless, but the tail of which is barbed with a poisonous sting it is well to avoid.
The emperor invited the principal commanders of the crusade into his lair, the inner sanctum of the imperial palace. Alexius was confident he could win over Duke Godfrey and his brother Baldwin. But they had now been joined by another crusade commander. Bohemund of Taranto was the aggressive eldest son of a family of Norman mercenaries who had recently taken control of southern Italy.
He was somebody who attracted attention through his appearance and through his bearing. He was perhaps the greatest warrior of the whole expedition. He was said to have the ferocity of a lion, a starving lion, charging into a group of sheep.
Bohemund's experience in war was invaluable. He had already battled against the Muslims in Sicily and won. But for years, he had also been fighting with the Byzantines. But Bohemund, like the other Crusader leaders, was a better soldier than a politician. They were all about to be outwitted.
When the emperor heard that Bohemund, that most distinguished man, had arrived, he ordered for him to be received with proper ceremony. Then, once he'd settled in, with the Duke Godfrey and his brother Baldwin, he invited him to a secret conference. He planned how to entrap these Christian knights by fraud and cunning.
Alexius had lost much of his empire to the Turks. He wanted to win these lands back, not see them passed on to this rival Catholic army. The emperor still had one trump card up his sleeve.
When they are in his lands, the one thing that they need is food. They're an army that is unprepared. It doesn't have supply chains like modern armies do. It's not all planned out ahead. They've got to live off the land. So Alexius can control and give them markets if they play the game. If they don't play the game with him, then he can withdraw those markets, and they are going to start suffering quite badly. It may provoke an outburst of bad behavior from them. They might start trying to ravage the land, but they realize sooner or later, because he has all the food, they've got to start doing business with Alexius. He knows that, and they know it too.
In return for his promise to supply food, each of the three Crusader leaders was forced to swear an oath of allegiance to the emperor. By that oath, they granted Alexius a commanding role over the whole campaign and vowed to return to his empire and the Eastern Orthodox Church any lands that they might win back from the Turks. The entire Crusader army was ferried across the Bosphorus by their new partners, the Byzantines. Soon they would be in enemy territory for the first time, and this fragile alliance would be put to the test.